are these people?
Speaking of movements, I have my story this evening, has some sadness, unfortunately. So movement to stop Atlanta's Cop City calls for support after police kill forest defender. So Atlanta activists are calling for an independent investigation in solidarity after police killed an indigenous land defender in a heavily armored raid. Do you see much about this, Collin? I know some stuff happened.
I know a little bit, but I don't know too much of it, to be honest with you. So
okay. Well, we'll get into it.
I learned with
at least 19 defend the Atlanta forest and stop Cop City activists occupying Weelaunee People's Park in Atlanta, Georgia, were arrested during a police raid on January 18th, though police have claimed they were conducting a regular operation. The activist stated that it was in fact a heavily armed raid. Dozens of DeKalb police, Atlanta police, and Georgia State Police destroyed the forest around the tree defenders' camp, cut down trees and tree houses in attempts to remove protesters, and used tear gas and rubber bullets to extract the forest defenders. Activists were charged with domestic terrorism and criminal trespass. One indigenous land defender named Manuel Terran, also known as Tortuguita, was shot and killed by police during a raid of the park. Terran was a trained medic who ran a mutual aid group, was a member of Tallahassee's Food Not Bombs, and organized disaster relief efforts for low-income families in Florida whose homes have been damaged by hurricanes. So here is Manuel, just in case, people should remember the face and name, I imagine. But we have a little bit of a video from Alive 11, which is a local over in Atlanta, to kind of enlighten us on what's been happening.
Future home of the Atlanta Police and Fire Training Center has been cleared out. Earlier today, a large group of protesters gathered at the center nicknamed Cop City. 11 Alive Sky Tracker flew over the area earlier today. GBI tells us that they were one of many agencies helping to clear the area. Protesters have had semi-permanent encampments in the area for about a year. They are against the center being built on historical ground, saying it would destroy one of the largest preserved forest areas in the city. Earlier this year, city officials said that they had hoped to start construction by the end of 2022, though it is unclear to what extent the protest movement has delayed that.
So that's where it stood. So we'll continue a little bit. No. Go next thing, please. Thank you. Forest defenders have occupied the Weelaunee, also called the South River Forest, since June of 2022, after the $90 million police training project dubbed Cop City moved forward despite community opposition at city council meetings and community engagement sessions, such as workshops, potlucks, and letter writing gatherings. Cop City would entail the destruction of over 100 acres of forest to build the largest police training facility of its kind in a state that, if every U.S. state was a country, would have the fourth largest rate of incarceration in the world. Welcome to Georgia. In June, one tree sitter named Wish explained that the occupation of the forest was a necessity because climate change and police violence are two of the most pressing issues affecting our society today, and they will only worsen if this facility is built. We cannot stand by as we sacrifice humanity's future for a cop city. Would you like to know where that 90 million came from, Collin? You want to know who's paying for that? Okay, I got you, fam. I got you, fam.
And folks, you've heard a lot about who wants to stop the plan to build this massive training facility, but who supports it and who's going to pick up the tab?
Our investigative team is following the money tonight to get you answers. Faith Jesse joining us now. Faith, what did you find out here?
Well, guys, according to property records, the city of Atlanta now owns the sprawling DeKalb County location, but taxpayers are only expected to foot about 1/3 of the estimated $90 million price tag. That means the nonprofit Atlanta Police Foundation is
nonprofit, first of all, which I love when they do that. You know, I love that.
Working to
Not
raise
all
millions
nonprofits
for
are good.
Yes.
construction. So here's the question. Where do they get the funding? The organization says private sector companies fund its projects. And we looked at the tax filings, which shows
And folks, you've heard a lot about
I wanted to
who wants
pause it.
stop the
$1 price tag. That means the nonprofit Atlanta Police Foundation is working to raise millions for construction. So here's the question. Where do they get the funding?
Yeah,
the
where?
organization says private sector companies fund its projects. And we looked at the tax file.
I mean,
UPS,
we got
McKesson, Waffle House,
Delta,
Cushman & Wakeman, Equifax, Ernst & Young,
Home
Coca-Cola,
Depot.
Delta, Accenture,
Shows 80%
Home Depot, all the big
Georgia
ones.
Pacific, the Bank of Atlanta, KPMG, Carter. Like, ugh.
of the money comes from
Honestly,
private
like, people, I know people talked about this. People should ban these places, honestly.
Yeah.
donations. It's
You know,
board
boycott
filled
these
with
places.
executives from nearly all of Atlanta's big name companies. Let's take a look at some of them. Waffle House, you see Equifax, Wells Fargo, the Home Depot, Delta, just to name a few. It reads like a who's who of corporate Atlanta, right? Public tax records do lag behind, so it's not yet clear exactly how much money is
That looks like a logo they'd use in RoboCop. I just want to say, like,
coming into the foundation from these companies for this project. But here's what we can tell you. We can tell you that in 2020, the organization had more than $24 million.
$24 million. Like, just for 2020.
Right.
And assets and liabilities. So this is what we do know right now. We're continuing to follow the money for you, digging through the documents to find out just how much these major companies are contributing to this project.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much.
Mm-hmm.
What matters is that they have.
Yes. Yep.
So essentially, they're building like a cop stadium.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
This is what it reminds me of. You're building a cop training station.
Yeah, it's like a
stadium
beaches
size.
resort, but for cops.
Right.
What do you think? What do you think they do? Like in Mai Tais and then beatings? Like is that what it is? You know?
No, but I can imagine
Laser
given that kind
tag.
of money. But no, you say that, but I can imagine with that amount of money that they're investing in this, that is going to have state of the art equipment.
Yes.
You know, like all the bells,
Virtual
and whistles
reality and all sorts of
all
fun
the bells
stuff.
and whistles, which, and this is how devious like
Mm-hmm.
the capitalist class is. That will make it, especially like in Atlanta, very attractive to become a cop.
Yes, but they're also doing it
And,
where? Where are they doing it? In like state forest, like
Right.
so they're removing.
Like
Yes.
those of you who don't know Atlanta, like my cousins now live in Atlanta. Like it's strange in the sense that like you can like there's a city, but like you don't have to drive far. You just have to drive maybe like 4 miles just outside, maybe 5, like outside of like downtown, like Midtown is what it's called there. And it's basically forest.
Yes.
Like it's still Atlanta.
Yeah, it's like outside my house. Like yeah.
Like, but it's basically all forest. Like my cousin used to live right near where Tyler Perry Studios is located, which is basically all forest, basically.
You mean he got the cement to you?
Right. So just to give you a context, if you haven't been in Atlanta, what it's like, but it's like pretty much once you go outside Midtown, downtown area, drive out not far, like maybe 20 minutes out off the highway, you know, it's suburb, it's still part of Atlanta, but it's pretty much like forest. So it's not hard to kind of figure that in terms of this.
There's been a great outpouring of grief and calls for action in response to the news of Tehran's death. Candlelit vigils, marches, and rallies have been organized in Madison, New York City, Oakland, Austin, Chicago, Minneapolis, and Atlanta. There were also reports of crowds occupying an intersection in Atlanta the night of the murder to draw attention to the police violence, and a solidarity noise demonstration was coordinated outside of DeKalb County Jail to support the tree sitters who were arrested. The Atlanta Solidarity Fund, an activist defense law firm, has stated that the killing of Turan is the latest terrifying development in a pattern of police escalation against a protest movement. Months ago, we warned that steadily increasing police repression would lead to protesters being killed, and here we are. Georgia State Police, or GPS, published a statement regarding the incident in which it misgenders Turan, who used they/it pronouns. Police have claimed that Turan shot and injured an officer who underwent abdomen surgery, and that officers returned fire in self-defense. No information, including the officer's name, has been released. No body cams, no nothing. So, here is the activists reflecting on the weekend protest, because it turned supposedly violent. So we'll get there.
New video tonight of the 6 people arrested for domestic terrorism. They went before a judge virtually today and faced charges of being part of protests in Atlanta
Domestic
that turned
terrorism.
violent over the weekend. It is all related to unrest over the planned construction of a new public safety training academy southeast of the city of Atlanta limits. 11 Alive's Doug Richards has more on what happened today.
One by one, the 6 protesters appeared before a magistrate at the Fulton County Jail. All had been charged with domestic terrorism, arrested after protest marches crossed through downtown Saturday. Police said some had damaged property and set fire to an Atlanta police cruiser. They were protesting the fatal shooting of another protester last week at the old prison farm site, where the Atlanta Police Foundation aims to build a new public safety training academy. The protester who died had fired a gunshot, injuring a Georgia State Patrol trooper before other officers returned fire, according to investigators.
Well, I'm not sure if they happened the way I hoped they would. They happened.
Kamau Franklin has been among the leaders of the movement he calls Stop Cop City.
I think there were a lot of people who were both sad and angry that a friend of theirs, someone who I think a lot of those young folks knew and worked with or cared about, who they shared similar politics with, was killed by the police.
But is it hypocritical or is it inconsistent for those who oppose police violence to become violent themselves when protesting it?
I think it's the wrong frame to even look at it. They're only concentrating on when they see a fire or a police car burning, or they see a property damage. That for them becomes violent, right? And you cannot solve the issue of the reaction without dealing first with the violence that started the actions in the first place.
In court, a judge granted bond to 2 of the 6 charged in the Saturday night.
Conveniently pigmented a particular way.
Protest. Police have identified 5 of the 6 as from outside of Georgia. 7 other people arrested at the training site last week were also from out of state, which is just fine with Franklin.
A great deal of the people, if not the vast majority, are people from Atlanta and the surrounding areas of Atlanta. But we welcome people who come from outside. We think calling people outsiders or outside agitators is the language of, to be quite frank, racial segregationists, right? That's where that language was picked up from.
Historically, Franklin isn't wrong. Politically and legally.
Damn, okay. 11 Alive. Okay.
Is whether the already delayed Atlanta Public Safety Training Center project can get off the ground with so much ongoing fiery backlash. Doug Richards, 11 Alive News.
And right now.
Nice, Doug. Good for you for saying he's not wrong. Good for you. Good for you with your Cronkite glasses on and everything. I'm doing it.
New video tonight.
No, we don't have to listen to that again. No, thank you. So, activists have voiced the police narratives on the murder of Turan have changed drastically since the raid. The first police narrative regarding the incident was that they met with an ambush-style attack. The story then changed to the police being approached by Turan individually, and then again to officers approaching a tent before being shot at. On the ground, sources, however, have reported that they heard 12 continuous rapid-fire shots, not an exchange of gunfire. Additionally, Those who knew Turan have emphasized that the forest defender was adamantly committed to nonviolent resistance. In an interview with Bitter Southerner, Turan explained that if police crack down on the forest-resistant movement, the defender's commitment to nonviolent action must remain intact. If they do a huge crackdown and completely try to crush the movement, they'll succeed at hurting some people. They'll succeed at destroying some infrastructure, but they're not going to succeed at stopping the movement, Turan said. If enough people decide to do this with nonviolent action, you can overwhelm the infrastructure of the state. That's something they fear more than violence in the streets, because violence in the streets, they'll win. They have guns for it. We don't. So would you like to see... Go ahead.
MLK-esque.
Yes,
to me.
Very much so. Would you like to see how CNN reported on this? It's
Not particularly, but yeah, I know you're going to anyway.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're gonna get mad.
For a little context for viewers who probably aren't following what's been happening with Cop City, and nearly $200 million investment in what's called
It's hard to
law
hear.
enforcement training.
Yeah, I think it's just
It's
their
something that will
thing.
train future cops, one hopes, in lawful ways, and also train citizens, emergency managers, and others. It's been under protest. It's called Cop City. It's been dubbed Cop City, and it's been under protest for a very long while. This last week, there was an altercation. The details are unknown. But one of the protesters of Cop City was killed in flight and was also armed. That's going to be investigated. So tensions were high in any event. To me, this is clearly violence. I understand David's point.
Clearly violence. This is clearly violence, CNN reporter says.
In the sense of course, there's a qualitative difference between shooting people or dragging people and violence against buildings. But people live in those buildings. People have their homes in those buildings. I think I lost you for a second. People have their people have that property. People own. Little bit of pearl clutching there. Buildings. We don't know how this unfolds, and so the elevation of it clearly had to be stopped relatively quickly by the police, which happened. And I think it is telling that most of these people are not from Atlanta, not even from Georgia. These organizations, those who want to disrupt peaceful protest, often come in to interrupt. So it looks like it's under control now, but the distinction between going after cop cars or buildings really is not a distinction that is knowable in real time. You simply don't.
What? That's not a distinction that's knowable in real time. The difference between property and human life. Like, okay.
Know how this will escalate, and that is why the police have to deal with it as if it were. As it's just violence. I mean, that's what it is.
So that's why the police have to deal with the nonviolent protests so that they were violent. Yeah. Fun stuff from CNN.
Well, so basically the old playbook, basically. So
yes. Yeah, victim blame and yes. Old playbook.
Look at the property, look at these bugs.
Yep.
Destroying property.
Yeah.
Instead of talking about the life that was murdered unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Due to construction of it. I love how they call it a facility, like to make it sound nice.
Right. 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 Not like vacation destination for racists.
No, it's a cop training stadium.
Yes. It's like
that's what I'm calling it. A cop training stadium.
Yep.
Because it does sound ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah. So the Atlanta Solidarity Fund has stated that GSP's story is suspect, as they have released few details, and the movement's attorney are concerned a police cover-up could be underway. They are preparing to file a wrongful death suit against the GPS for the killing of Turan. Activists stress that no gun was recovered from the scene and that there is no police body cam footage of the incident, leading them to believe that the officer's injury may have been caused by friendly fire. Motherfucker, pig behind you shot you. Like, anyway, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, a division of the same organization that houses the Georgia State Police, is conducting an investigation into the death of Tehran. In a press release published by the Atlanta Community Press Collective, Defund the Atlanta Forest and Stop Cop City activists have called for an independent investigation of Tehran's murder and have asked legal observers and journalists to accurately document the violent tactics used by the police against the forest defenders. Defund the Atlanta Forest has called on the community to donate to the Atlanta Solidarity Fund, link in that description below if people want to go there, to support legal costs for arrested protesters, demand that investors in Cop City divest from the project, and that builders drop their construction contracts. They have also asked organizers to coordinate political solidarity bail funds, forest defense funds, and forest defense committees across the country. The struggle that is playing out in Atlanta is a contest for the future. The statement reads, "It will determine whether those who come after us inherit an inhabitable earth or a police state nightmare. The forest defenders are trying to create a better world for all of us. We owe it to the people of Atlanta and to future generations everywhere to support them." So, yeah.